It's been about a year since I did my Tristan's Monstrous Potential video, and that did very well, and I did that before I went on vacation. So why not do the same thing with this one? But here's the thing, Tristan is honestly one of my favorite characters, and with the current arc, it does feel like he's not getting as much focus as he should. Right now in the manga, we are in the Demon Realm arc, and we are encountering our first battle against the Chaos Knights that infiltrated there. And we met Zeldris, we met the newer members of these 6 Knights of Black. I'm calling them that until they get an official name. If there is an official name, please let me know in the comments for these guys, because I don't want to keep calling them the wrong name. But we see these characters that are integral to the mythos of 7 Deadly Sins, and he meets his uncle for the first time in what I presume to be a long time. But throughout this story arc, Tristan has not gotten any real focus or shine. And that is kind of concerning to not only Tristan fans, but fans of the manga in general, because this feels like a golden opportunity to really dive into Tristan as a character. He just lost one of his closest friends in the Walnut arc, and he blames himself for it as well. He was just beaten down by one of the 6 Knights of Black, and he and his parents were insulted by this character, saying that they're not that big of a deal, and defeating the 10 Commandments was probably just some petty trick that they pulled. Now, obviously afterwards, this not only hit Tristan in his ego, but it fuels his insecurities about himself. That's something that I think a lot of us have kind of noticed if we really look in terms of Tristan's dialogue, how he treats himself, and compares himself to his parents, and how he views his out-of-control powers when he lets his demon powers kind of run rampant or stay active for way too long that he can handle. And that's what I want to focus on today. Now, before we get into the video in full, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make on this channel. Only 26% of the people that watch these types of videos are subscribed, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys did subscribe to get notified whenever I upload next. I have the goal of making it to 10k subs at the bare minimum before the end of the year, and I do think we can manage that. But let's get right into the video. So, the thing is, Tristan has 2 major things going for him for his character in terms of development. One is how he constantly compares himself to his parents, and the other is actually what makes him a lot more like Meliodas than people who are not fully invested in 7 Deadly Sins or even Four the Apocalypse could actually think of. Because, let's start with Meliodas. One key factor of Meliodas as a character that not many people tend to really bring to light is the fact that he is afraid of himself. Now, whenever people think of Meliodas, they kind of obviously think of the pervert aspect, and I think we can all agree that part of his character was definitely a mistake and no one really likes it. You could like Meliodas as a character, but if you don't like the perfect aspect, you don't like it. I kind of cringe whenever I see that from the beginning of 7 Deadly Sins. But that aside, Meliodas as a character is actually a lot more complex than people tend to give him credit for. Obviously, it's the whole thing about him and Elizabeth's curse of death and reincarnation and immortality, losing his emotions, constantly seeing the woman he loves die brutally in any conceivable way once she starts to remember who she used to be. Now that obviously is going to mess someone's mental state up beyond belief. So the fact that Meliodas is even slightly sane in the present timeline shows how much mental fortitude the guy does have. But when you go to the 2nd season of 7 Deadly Sins, I'm talking about the 2nd season in terms of the overall story. And season 2 on Netflix is an OVA series. That's not what a lot of people kind of understand. It is an OVA series following a bunch of side stories in between the 2 seasons. It's not officially the 2nd season, but Netflix makes the 2nd season. Just wanted to clarify that because a lot of people tend to get that a bit mixed up. But anyway, at the end of the 10 Commandments arc, when they were revived, and after Escanor defeated Estarossa, and Meliodas, after reviving, getting more of his true demonic power, taking out Fraudrin, breaks down crying in front of Elizabeth at the ruins of the Boar Hat Tavern, as he just says that he's afraid of becoming who he used to be. That is a scene that sticks with me whenever I go through 7 Deadly Sins, because it makes sense in terms of his training arc with the druids and getting a better control of his wrath, because once it goes out of control, he can basically nuke a whole city without controlling it, as we saw with Danafor. But Meliodas, as a character, he wants to protect the people that he cares about, primarily Elizabeth, obviously, and he cares about his friends, but he's always constantly afraid of turning into the demon that he used to be. When his demon powers go full force, and we even get to see what kind of a demon he is without his emotions, when he enters assault mode for the first time, and then fights Escanor. And that's something I completely think that we should think of, because this sounds a lot like Tristan. Whenever he ends up using his demon powers, he will only use it in short, quick bursts, or with his goddess powers at the same time to theoretically, or from something that I can presume, temper it so he can have better control over his powers and give himself a decent boost so he can use both magics at the same time without his demon powers corroding his mind and causing him to go berserk. But if he uses it for too long, he will begin to grow uncaring, unfeeling, or just primarily angry. The time of me recording this video, Grudge of Edinburgh Part 2 is about to go up the next day, so I have no idea how that's dealt with. I might make a video on it before I leave for Greece, but that's all up in the air. But what I can tell from that is that, aside from Meliodas, there's also Lancelot, who can keep Tristan under control with his immense power whenever Tristan goes out, loses himself to his demon powers. So I do think that Tristan shares this thing with Meliodas of not wanting to lose himself to his power. And that's why he's constantly afraid and tries his best not to use his demon powers, only as a last resort and only in short, quick bursts. Primarily when he's in a bit of a stable set of mind. When he's angry, that is going to make it a lot more difficult for him to control, as seen with the fight between him and Meligaland, and when he constantly tried to fight Arthur, even though he was unable to fight Arthur because Arthur was way too powerful. But yeah, Tristan is afraid of his demon powers. He's afraid of losing himself and becoming a monster, just like Meliodas had constantly been afraid of ever since the whole curse deal happened and he found out about his curse about losing his emotion. And while the circumstances are not the same, Tristan and Meliodas share that fact of being afraid of losing who they are, losing their sense of self and the person that they have become. And that is something that I think we should all take into account. But the other thing that's integral to Tristan as a character, outside of being afraid of his demon powers and losing himself, is how he constantly compares himself to his parents, and how people have been comparing him to his parents. Now, this is something that has been brought up multiple times by Tristan himself, most of the time primarily with Elizabeth and his goddess powers, as he constantly says, okay, my powers are alright, but my mother is incredibly powerful. She can do this for a lot longer. Her healing properties can even cure diseases, something that I can't do, and even curses. So Tristan obviously does compare himself to his mother in terms of the goddess powers, and he's afraid of his demon powers losing himself, and he's also kind of afraid of being compared to his father. Now, what I think, instead of him becoming a powerful, uncontrollable demon that Meliodas used to be, he is ashamed that he can't control his powers, something that was essentially given to him by his father, the strongest demon around, and protector of a lot of innocent people, a hero to Leonis and Britannia as a whole. Despite his dark past, Meliodas is a hero in this world, and he is a very just ruler, as what we can see from the brief instances that we've seen of Leonis and its citizenry. So instead of being afraid of being like Meliodas, he's afraid that he'll never compare to Meliodas as he is now. Meliodas didn't even go into assault mode. He used his second demon mark ability to fight Arthur. And let me mind you, neither of these characters were going all out in this fight. Meliodas was trying to talk to Arthur. Arthur wasn't going full on either. So it goes to show that Meliodas has such mastery over his own powers that Tristan, who, if he used it for even more than a few minutes, will lose absolute control and even reasoning. And seeing his father, someone who had this dark past, who was afraid of losing himself, now being a new person, being stronger than he ever was before, and having full mastery over his emotions and his powers, Tristan, as his son, feels inferior. He's not as strong as his mother, he's not as good as his mother, and he's not as good as his father. When it comes to his parents, he's afraid of not living up to who his parents are. Now, obviously, his parents deeply care for Tristan, and they want what's best for him. This is shown in Grudge of Edinburgh, when Meliodas talks about Tristan not doing his Holy Knight training, bringing up the fact that Tristan wanted to be a member of the 7 Deadly Sins when he grew up, and now he focuses more on other things. And Meliodas, you might think of this a bit harsh, but he's trying to remind his son that there is something that he himself is passionate about, and not to just focus on other things if it's just an interest or something. I'm diving too deep into it, but it's a part of Meliodas as a character to be blunt with others about what they think and what they are. And Tristan is ashamed of himself for losing control and not being able to fight on par with other characters, primarily with the fact with Lancelot. When Lancelot showed up and saved Meliodas and Tristan from Arthur, because Meliodas was too busy keeping Tristan under control and protecting him from Arthur to fight back against Arthur. When Lancelot showed up, Tristan and Meliodas were saved. And obviously Lancelot knocks Tristan out of his demon rampage, so yeah. But in that instance, Lancelot fights Arthur, and Meliodas cheers on for Lancelot, showing how much he believes that Lancelot can fight Arthur. And Tristan obviously is disappointed in himself. Tristan has a huge inferiority complex, which is not helped by other characters comparing him to his parents. And yes, this includes his uncle. Even though Zeldris isn't comparing Meliodas and Tristan in terms of strength, in his mind, I'm sure Tristan is. In terms of personality, being hard on himself and being afraid of himself, Zeldris points that out. He is not super clear, but if you know Meliodas and you have paid attention to Tristan, you understand that Zeldris, who knows Meliodas better than anybody, shows that Tristan is a humble person. He constantly puts a bunch of expectations onto himself, and he tends to hide his true feelings. Similar to how Meliodas does a lot of the times and tries to put on a mask. But with Tristan, it's more of inferiority and fear of not being like his parents and losing himself. Tristan is a character that I think deserves a lot more time to shine, and hopefully before this arc even ends, Tristan showcases his own progression towards his personal growth. Whether it ends up being him mastering his demon powers, or just accepting that he won't be like his parents, but he has to be who he is and be stronger and surpass them in his own way, and to stop comparing himself to others and not listen when others compare him to his parents. Now I'm going to say something that I never thought I would say. But Tristan has a good friend in Chion, in a sense.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Because Chion, despite being an absolute turd, someone that I just want to punch in the face so often, every time he's on screen, every time he wants to talk, and I sympathize with his fucked up backstory with what happened to him. That doesn't mean I have to like him as a person. He is one of the constant forces of positive reinforcement most of the time to Tristan in this series. And while it's kind of malicious towards others, he is doing this for Tristan. Obviously, Chion understands Tristan's whole mental and emotional struggles with being compared to his parents. That's why he's always hyping up Tristan, showing that Tristan will be amazing. And Isolde does that as well, though she is also kind of in love with Tristan. But that's one thing I have to commend Chion for, because aside from his parents, Tristan only thinks that his parents are saying that because they're his parents and they love him and they'll do anything to try and make him happy, but they probably just don't want to upset him with the truth. Obviously, because Tristan catastrophizes a lot of things from what I can tell, and he's constantly hard on himself, which is why I think having someone like Chion, the absolute dick that he is, actually trying to cheer Tristan up whenever he gets a chance, is kind of, in a way, keeping Tristan from kind of losing it. I'm gonna be honest. Yes, Tristan will call out Chion for going too far when it comes to calling out others, but when it comes to the positive reinforcement that Chion does when complimenting or hyping up Tristan, I think he kind of does a bit to Tristan's ego, because there's someone looking up to him, someone who is very confident in his strength, and he wants to do everything he can not to let him down. That's what he does when it comes to his entire platoon. And that's also why Jade's death weighs so heavily on him. He was getting information that was important for their mission. That's why he didn't go and find them sooner. But he blamed himself for not going to find his friend sooner, because if he did, Jade would still be alive. That's why this death weighs very heavily on him. Same with Isolde and Chion, because they're all childhood friends. But Tristan is the leader of their group. He's the one that they look to for guidance and leadership, and the ones that they put their lives to help protect so that he can be, who he is. And that part of him, a part of that died when Jade died. And that's why I think it's important to pay attention to Tristan's mental state. Tristan is someone who is constantly feeling inferior to his family, and is constantly putting unrealistic expectations on himself no matter what, even when others don't intend to give him this type of idea whenever they compare him to, let's say, his father, for instance, like Zeldris did. And I think Zeldris even kind of acknowledges the fact that Tristan gets the wrong idea when he compares him to Meliodas. And I think that before this arc ends, I think Zeldris needs to have a talk with his nephew. he really needs to have a talk with his nephew. And I think if his uncle acknowledges him and gives him a type of road forward, then that will do wonders for Tristan as a character and actually help him develop and advance in his story. But that's really all I gotta say about Tristan today. He's afraid of losing himself, he constantly compares himself to his parents, and feels like he can't live up to the people, to the legends that they themselves are. And I even acknowledge Chion for actually being somewhat positive in Tristan's life, even though he's an absolute dick. And sometimes does more harm than good when it comes to other people, and I think Tristan acknowledges that, but he does think that Chion looking up to him is kind of does good for his own ego in a sense. Not in a bad way. In a positive way that reinforces that there is still something that he can do. I just want to clarify that. But yeah, what did you guys think of this video on Tristan? I want to do some more videos on Tristan in the future when I get the opportunity. But I felt like I needed to make this in and of itself with how the arc is seemingly gearing up to its conclusion, and I kind of hope we get more focus on Tristan since we had more of a focus primarily on Percival in this section of the story. So I really hope that some more focus gets put on Tristan for this arc, if not the next one, because Tristan is a character that I think needs a lot more diving into, almost as much as Gawain. But what do you guys think? Leave your thoughts, opinions, and comments down below. Let me know what you think of Tristan. What do you think of this video? Do you want more videos like this? How do you feel about Tristan's inferiority complex? About how he's afraid of himself? Tell me all the details and tell me all of your thoughts down below. And once more, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It helps me make this channel as best as possible. And let's get to 10K by the end of the year. I really think we can do it. And with all that said and done, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have an awesome day.